This one is really complicated. So let's break it down. So Venus is kazimi. This is a lovely time for Venus to be in the heart of the sun. Ideally, during a Venus kazimi, we're getting some of the best qualities that Venus has to offer from that sign where the alignment is occurring. But here we have a very, very complex Venus kazimi story brewing. This one begins in the sign of Libra at 29 Libra. So this is ideally great. A Venus cazimi in her domicile, awesome. This could mean really great things for you in terms of relationship realizations. Usually things are coming to light for us with a kazimi, and sometimes it's just coming through what's being shown and how we're just showing up in our relationships, what our relationships are showing us. We also might get themes around like beauty. Venus in Libra is wonderful at design. But here's the thing, is that this is happening at the anaretic degree, 29 degrees. There's something urgent. There's something like calling our attention. Like if we don't do something to address this, we're going to turn into a pumpkin at midnight forever. Like it's something like that, where we feel like the clock is running out. And if we don't make a move on something, we're not going to get that Venusian harmony or balance or something that we're trying to get at in our relationship. We feel like we're running out of time. And, eclipse season is right around the corner. So that means change. Change is coming for us, especially, depending on where these eclipses are happening in your chart, Mars retrograde happening in your chart, the Saturn-Uranus square, name it. So this could be the sense that if we don't do something here we're going to run out of time, whether that's saving our relationship or putting our house on the market before things crash. Not saying when it will, but it's something that we're all speculating about. So that's all well and good. That's happening on October 22nd. But then Venus follows with the sun because they're traveling around the same speed into the early degrees of Scorpio, where Venus's basically effectiveness diminishes greatly because she enters the sign of her detriment in Scorpio. So here we're going to see some problems. And this is a big red flag for me as an astrologer and also a woman, someone who has a uterus in the country of the United States. And also, I'm looking at what's going on in Iran. Venus is the planet that tells us a lot about women and women's rights. And I'm thinking back to the Aries ingress chart. And why am I thinking back to the Aries ingress chart? Because Venus was besieged in the Aries ingress chart. And that was happening in every single Aries ingress for every single nation. For us in the United States, it happened in our 9th house, the law. So the Supreme Court came for Roe v. Wade at the last eclipse season. Here we are at another eclipse season where the stakes of this primary election coming up on November 8th are really high in terms of what it's going to be like to have gender affirming care in the United States moving forward, access to birth control, etc. I'm also watching what's going on in Iran, where protests are really heating up. Women are being killed for choosing to wear their hair the way that they want to, choosing to express themselves. And in Iran's Aries ingress chart, that fell in the 5th house. And I find the 5th house is a house of sexuality. But yeah, I just think like Venus has her joy in the 5th house normally, but then she's besieged. So it's like someone who's feeling themselves, but then attacked. And yeah, literally besiegement means to be like imprisoned. And that's how all of this began. And so, yeah, I'm watching the developments in these two countries really closely in relationship to Venus, because this Venus Cazimi at 0 degrees of Scorpio moves into 1 degree Scorpio, moves into 2 degree Scorpio, where we have an eclipse. So this power, this usual power that the sun has to supercharge Venus with the best qualities that it can offer us, diminished. So not only do we have an eclipsed Venus, but we have a detriment Venus, and we have a combust Venus. So this is all really bad. And this is what makes me nervous. And while my goal as an astrologer is to help you live your best life, I am not the type that sugarcoats, and I would be very, very freaking nervous about this. That said, eclipses bring in the hands of fate, and we ultimately don't know how it's going to turn out. My one little bit of hope here is that, this is happening in the Via Combusta, which is not conducive to life, which might mean that, we have the right to choose, is what I'm thinking. But ultimately, we don't know. We'll have to see how that turns out. So more about that eclipse when we get there. Let's also take a minute here to talk about Venus and Scorpio, because this Venus Cazimi, before it gets eclipsed in Scorpio, can also bring out some really great things from Scorpio. So Venus does indeed have her detriment in Scorpio, but it's not all bad. She just has a hard time because Venus in Scorpio gets really attached. She gets really deeply, intimately connected to someone. It's just like a baby, I'll drink your blood if you drink mine kind of thing. It's a very deeply intimate, loyal, dedicated, just enmeshed kind of energy. So if anything threatens that, vulnerability that Venus has opened herself up to, she gets very possessive. She gets very jealous. So that's sort of the downside with Venus and Scorpio, and why we sort of have a harder time with that, especially if it's in a natal chart. However, by transit, this is a transit that inspires us to lean in a little bit closer to the people who feel like, they're our ride or die, basically. So this Venus Cazimi can really highlight those themes for us of ride or die in kind of a cool way, because it'll be Cazimi and we're getting the best of it. But more on the Venus Cazimi eclipse when we talk about our eclipse. And for now, that's your astrology shot of the day. Bye. Thanks for tuning in with me today. For more astrology in your world, you can connect with me on all platforms at Astro Catherine. You can also find me at catherineurban.com, where you can book your one-on-one consultation and get insights for your chart for the year ahead.